you? Hi. How's everybody doing? It's a silly question to ask this with everything that's going on. Good. Thank you, Isabel. Thank you for coming in. Just want to say hi. Spend a little time with you all. See how you're doing. Everybody seems to hear me okay. Hi, Heather. It's good to see you. You're always here. You must get notified when I go live. So we are definitely in the new TikTok world when you have almost 780,000 people and you've got 14 people on your live. They are making it very obvious what they plan to do with creators here. And so it'll be interesting to see what happens as time goes on. Resilience says, sending love and comfort to y'all and spoons for the disabled folks. Thank you, Resilient Moonlight. I don't get notified. I came across it. I hope you don't mind me being here. Of course, you're welcome to be here, Heather. Anytime you want to come in, I recognize your name and know that you always show up. So I really do appreciate you being here. Anytime you want to show up, you're welcome to do that. One of the things that I like to do is read you a little bit of my blog. I've returned to writing more over on, I'm not even going to try to code these words anymore. It doesn't seem to matter anymore what you do, whether or not you try to play nicely with the algorithm. And I'm not trying to sound as bitter as what sometimes I can be about this whole thing. Tapping will push to FYP. Thank you all. Yeah, if you continue to like and share. Religion means relationship with God. I'm not sure I understand why that's funny, Renee, and what your point is there. But I have started writing over on Substack, and I invite you to join me over there. I wrote a blog last week called I Lost Heaven and I'm Grateful. And I like to share a little bit of that with you, so I will read some of that. I also have some questions. I also have some questions I'm going to answer. We have so many questions from you beautiful people, and we want to try to create a place where you can come and ask those questions, but also get them, try to get them answered in a way that as timely as we can. But I also think that things are going to be changing quickly. I believe that our access to one another, and especially in the social media platforms, it's going to be changing quickly. So as many as especially for the creators that you really want to follow, make sure you're following us on all the many other different platforms, because I do believe our time here is limited. Like I said, you're seeing we've got 16 people on this live, and I have 780,000 followers. And hi, Poetic, it's so good to see you, my friend. I hope you're doing well and able to get your message out as well. I just joined Substack, so I will find you there. Yes, you can find me there. What I really love about that platform is the very thoughtful engagement and how you can really seems to very much focus you down into people who want to be there sharing your content and asking you questions. I am on the tube YT. I am on YT, Isabel. As a matter of fact, we're streaming there right now. And you can find me there if you look for my username. Zeddy says, I have followed you for a few years, and I have to say I truly love and enjoy your spirit. Thank you, Zeddy. I appreciate it. Certainly, I even go back and look at some of my old content from 2020. And, I was over on Facebook posting. I started really writing about 2015, 2016, and how much my content has changed, how much my deconstructing has continued to impact me in all these years. So especially going through seminary during that time. So it has been very, very interesting indeed. Third Coaster says, I'm leaving TikTok and have live gifts to spend, giving it to you gladly. Third Coaster, I'm honored. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Isabel, oh good, go over there. Go grab YT, go grab Substack, do whatever you need to do to make sure you're following me on the other platforms. Jackson says, thank you for this safe space. I'm honored to have created that. Sometimes the noise around people who really, really don't like the deconstructing community to share their stories. They very much are offended by it. And they take a personal offense to people who are brave enough to try to create those spaces for people who no longer feel that they can reconcile some of the disconnect that they have with their spirituality and their religious heritage, or for whatever reasons they have been pulled away from church life, and sometimes from religion altogether. And man, that people take that really, really personally. Nikki says, I just followed you on Substack. That will be my main go-to after TikTok left Facebook and IG a year ago. Yeah, it's been really interesting. I do a little writing on Threads as well, but some of our most prolific platforms right now are the ones that you just left. And it's unfortunately, especially for those of us who rely on social media to get our message out, it's a double-edged sword. Because just to give somebody your website now it's just not enough. So when you are trying to make sure that you connect with the people that you help and the people that you have been connecting with for the past 11 years, and you've built a platform there's actually value in those places. But I was just talking to Lynette earlier that how frustrating it has been, how exhausting it has been to try to chase that algorithm. And I think I certainly have reached a point where I'm done. I'm really done. And the wall for me with this platform, with TikTok, is I'm not going to try to contort. There are two ways to look at this. I'm not going to try to contort myself into an algorithm that's going to make me silence my voice, my advocacy, in order to try to get my message out. Number one. Number two, I don't even think I'm going to be allowed to. I think there's going to be so many restrictions placed around the type of content that we can create that it's just not even going to be worth being here. So a platform the size of mine is going to basically be useless. And that is sad for the people who you have been speaking to for the past almost 6 years. But that is the reality. It's changing rapidly as well. I'm not sure I understand who Greg Laurie. Ryan, I'm not sure who Greg Laurie is. I'm not sure about your comment. Hi, Ayana. It's good to see you. That's why I'm over on Substack. TikTok took away my ability to record my voice. Yeah. Where will we all meet up? Lynn, I'm hoping that we can have, I am writing and I am posting over on Substack. These videos that I'm creating here on TikTok are getting repurposed across all channels. So that's going to continue to happen. I do plan to go live. Lynette and I, she's my moderator. She's also my amazing daughter. She's here on this live with me. We were just talking about we're going to be going live twice a week, and during those lives we're going to be harvesting your questions and your comments and responding to those. So did I do the wrong date? Is that what you I see somebody said German. Did I put 127? I could have easily done that. So sorry if I put the wrong date. He's linked with Erica Greg Laurie. Ryan, thank you. I'm going to look into that. Things are happening so quickly. I can't keep up. I'm one person, getting up at 4 a.m. trying to do all my research before I get ready to write or before I get ready to make content. And certainly not using this as an excuse, but still trying to practice some element of self-care after still recovering from surgery. So there are some things where I have just decided I have got to turn away from certain subject matters and trust the creators who are making content on it, that they're doing their due diligence and understand and educating us on those things, because I'm not going to be able to talk about them. And so my focus right now is really helping people still deconstruct from white Christian patriarchy, because they're not responding fast enough to the urgency of this situation and how quickly our democracy is deteriorating. And so when something happens in this country, I want to be able to build a bridge to something that's happened in the past, especially with the rise of Christian nationalism in our country, because we have been stair-stepped into this since Reconstruction, since Jim Crow, since the Civil Rights, since the founding of the moral majority, since Jerry Falwell and Paul Weyrich, since Ronald Reagan and Mitch McConnell. When Mitch McConnell promised to deliver the judicial system to this movement, all of it has been playing out. And I think it's really, really, really important that there's things that happened where I really want to take my time and explain to you, so you can see that bridge between then and now, so that you can wake up to the dangers we're under, versus sometimes I'm just going to go right at a situation like I did with Melania yesterday, and the outrageous insults of that seemingly innocuous video that she did where she was calling on peace, when all it was dog whistles that had white Christian patriarchy written all over it. So that's what I've decided to do, but I am going to write down, Greg, Lori, and see what I can find out about that. But I'm leaving Erica to other people. All of that to say, I'm leaving Erica to other people. Ryan, 100%. Ryan says shock and awe was always their tactic. 100%. Heather, good night, sweetie. Stay well. Shock and awe it is. They're coming at us so quickly because they hope to polarize us and paralyze us. They're hoping that we cannot respond, and so that we'll just tune out and pretend it's all going away. We just hope that it's all, that this will somehow not impact us, or that someone else will take care of it, and we cannot do that. So you can't do everything, but you can do one thing, and we're going to talk a little bit about that when I get to the questions. I'm going to just look at a couple more comments, and then we're going to get going. Polly Prissy Pants, Karla Rove, 100%. Karl Rove, 100%. Witchy Angel, many people in USA had no experience with authoritarian governments, therefore refused to see it. Yes, that's very true. We also have not understood, especially here with those of us whose educational system whitewashed a lot of what happened during the civil rights at history, and even our own history around romanticizing the Civil War. A lot of us we never completely understood the dangers of how closely aligned our structure of government was aligned with fascism, and what Christian nationalism was, and what the dangers of that was. The book The Power Worshippers does a really good job explaining that, and how that was all done under the banner of heaven, if you will. Like, if you can get people to link God and country, you have created a formidable ally inside this public education system. When you're indoctrinating kids to believe that God has somehow blessed this nation and its founding, then you have immediately created generations of Americans who may not completely understand that allegiance to the flag until it's tested. And then when you conflate it with your faith, you can see how it all blends together to be really confusing. And instead of really diving into education and ripping yourself apart from that indoctrination, what do? You look to the pulpit. You look to the pulpit and say, well, what should I believe? I'm really confused. Maybe I need to look to my church leaders, the very people who are going to continue to ensure that your indoctrination keeps you tithing, keeps you in the pews, keeps you loyal to the Christian patriarchy. So you learn nothing. So this is what we're dealing with. Yeah, Katie, Greg, you're the second person who's mentioned that, and I probably know who they are, and I'll be honest, I'm just not ringing a bell right now. Witchy angel, 100%. Millions of people have died under the guise of religion. This is the way it always happens to me when I get on lives. I get on here and I'm so afraid I'm going to miss your comments. I don't do what I came here to do. So I am going to read a little bit of my blog. You can find this on Substack. Thank you, Linda. On a side note, have you seen Erica Kirk drag queen? No, I haven't. I'm hardly on social media at all. It takes everything I can to research, to read, to stay on top of things, and to still take care of myself the way I need to post-surgery. He was really big in the early 2000s. Harvest Church took over the Billy Graham crusades. Okay. I'm sure I will too. I'm sure I'll remember. I'm sure I will. I hope you're doing well, Ellie Mae. I hope you're doing well. All right, this is my blog from this past Sunday. It's titled, I Lost Heaven and I'm Grateful. Releasing the Promise of the Christian Heaven and Finding Peace in the Unknown. It was dangled over my head like a big carrot, dipped in the honey of Bible verses, affirming a belief that only Christians were the ones destined for it. Easy to memorize vacation Bible school songs assuring me that good girls ended up there, and prayers begging the Sky Daddy to take my soul if this was my last night on earth. How's that for a segue into a blog? When I considered what I wanted to share for this writing, I asked myself, what were my earliest memories that I have about being taught about heaven? I don't recall a time when I didn't know about it. It seems woven into my Christian indoctrination, just as, yes, Jesus loves me, the Bible tells me so. Of course, I didn't know the Bible told me so. I knew the Bible told me so because adults taught me that the Bible told me so. There isn't anything inherently wrong with teaching children the beliefs and values that matter to the adults in children's lives. Parents, teachers, loved ones all contribute to the well-being of a child, offering complex concepts in simplistic ways. The assumption is that one day that child will mature to the point where they can understand more complicated concepts about life, such as relationships, emotions, values, and when it comes to spirituality, beliefs. At that point, the child's world expands as curiosity and discernment prompt them to ask questions and, if allowed, to develop their own values and beliefs based on their understanding and lived experiences. The operative phrase here is, if allowed, because whether it was openly mandated or subtle in its directives, a child raised in conservative evangelical American Christianity believes that Jesus loves them when they obey the Bible as well as the adults teaching them. Everyone outside the framework of that belief system is seen as untrustworthy, ungodly, and most certainly not going to the heaven promised to obedient Christians. Heaven became part of the reward system that assured children there was nothing to fear here on earth. Don't worry, Grandma is in heaven. You can still talk to her. She's with Jesus now. So she's happy. Don't be sad. Of course, I was sad. I loved my great-grandmother. Her death was the earliest memory I have of attempting to reconcile death with a belief that wasn't comforting me as I sat and stared at the casket, holding my cold, lifeless great-grandmother. I remember as a child trying to understand getting old, and I was fascinated by how the body changed. My great-grandmother seemed ancient. She was always there, in every childhood memory, where big family gatherings happened more than just Christmas and Easter. What else was there to do in the 60s except send children to the yard while the adults sat around the table and talked? I eventually wandered away from the kids and found myself inside, standing at the table, usually right beside her, listening to her crackling voice tell stories. Then one day it was over. I don't recall how I learned of her death. My memories of that time are all at the funeral home, coming to grips with something that felt permanent and very aware that something important in my life had ended. No, I would be sad, but just not show it, at least not in the way my heart wanted to. I wanted to cry because I was scared of dying. I wanted to cry because I would miss this person. I wanted to cry because I selfishly didn't want anything in my life to change. Heaven felt like it had robbed me of a piece of my childhood that I would never get back. In truth, I was right. I'm not the only child raised in this evangelical world who was impacted by these beliefs about heaven. Perhaps I'm the exception, and everyone else accepted these beliefs as part of life, except for this one pesky thing. The number of people who are deconstructing. Y'all aren't ever going to convince me that there aren't pockets of childhood teachings that impacted us as adults and that eventually influenced our deconstructing from evangelical Christianity. And for many of us, Christianity entirely. It's all connected. Spiritual breadcrumbs, I call them in my book. All the tiny pieces of crumbs of our lived experiences that brought us to the realization that even if heaven was real, I'm risking my chance of missing it, and I'm out of here. Those spiritual breadcrumbs. I'll finish with this this paragraph. It would be years after leaving church before I finally deconstructed not only my fear of hell, but the promise of heaven. What struck me in those early days of deconstructing those beliefs was how outsized that fear of hell was compared to my belief that heaven awaited me if I did all the right things before I died. Fear is a massive motivator for those raised to believe that one's actions will determine one's fate in this afterlife. Massive motivator. Okay, you can find the rest of that over on Substack if you're interested. Thank you, Melissa. It's good to be here. Okay, we have a couple of questions. Lynette, do you want to join me here so we can talk about the questions that we have that I'm going to talk about right now? Are you there?
Yes, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can everybody hear Lynette? Thank you all for I see your gifts and I see your comments. Thank you all so very much. Thank you, Linda. I appreciate that.
Yep, I think everyone can hear me. Yay.
Okay. You want to start with 26.1?
Yes, so this is a comment that was left on your blog 2 weekends ago. The title of that blog was "What Was Never Mine to Carry? Releasing Christianity and Returning to Myself." So the question is if it's not too personal, what did you specifically do to sever the tethers? And I think what she was referring to is a part of your blog is quoted here, so I'm gonna go ahead and read that as well. As I lay there staring up at the blue sky through the skylights, I came to the present moment, where just a few short months ago I had finally severed the tethers holding me to my Christian faith. So this commenter says, I've been deconstructing from evangelical Christianity since 2018. I still have not completely severed the tether.
Sever the tether is really a was a tough one. I can hear that. I also hear your old dog. So if you need to be excused to go take care of your old man, you can do that.
Thank you.
Okay, so the blog that Debbie is referencing, this commenter is referencing, is called what was it, Lynette? I'm sorry, before you leave, what was it?
No, I just took him out, so he's fine.
Okay.
The title is What Was Never Mine to Carry, Releasing Christianity and Returning to Myself.
Yeah, so this is where I talk about like my experience of being laid up for 6 weeks post-surgery and thinking that this was going to be an amazing time for me to get so much writing done, and not realizing how much time I needed to spend in the spiritual wilderness because of just leaving Christianity entirely. And even though I've been deconstructing much of my faith for many years, understanding that I had completely severed those tethers, I knew it was time, and I needed to make that public. So a lot of what I had deconstructed in the beginning was done privately, and now it was being done publicly, so it was being done very differently, and I needed to spend time alone. So that's what's shared in that blog. You can find that over on Substack. So what I would say to this commenter is that the first thing that I would say is, when she said, Debbie, you're asking if it's not too personal. Nothing is too personal. I'm willing to share pretty much anything about my deconstructing story, because I think that's what not only connects us, it empowers us. If I'm telling my story and I'm willing to be vulnerable and share all the details, then hopefully that will help validate something that you're going through. And I think something that I said resonated deeply in you, to say, I hear elements of my own experience inside what you're saying, and it's resonating with me. Because oftentimes, especially with those of us who were part of this high control indoctrination that said that a lot of us our ability to be a good Christian depended on us being submissive to church leaders, doing what we were told, being silent, silencing that voice, swallowing our words. We gaslight ourselves. We try to talk ourselves out. We self-sabotage. We are masters at self-sabotage. We really think that we're the problem. We still are trying to convince ourselves that there's something we can do to stop what's happening that's inside us, that we know is the truth. So the first thing I want to say to you about this is, don't deny what's rising up for you. Don't deny, because oftentimes it is so real and palpable. I know I've shared this many times before, and perhaps you've never heard it, but I remember early in my deconstructing, I was reading books that I was hiding from people, because I knew it was wrong. I knew it was a sin to read about people who thought that Christianity must change or die, as John Shelby Spong wrote, or that other paths, or that Jesus' words sounded more Buddha-like. And all these things that I had never been taught, even in some ways, and I wrote about this in the book, that C.S. Lewis was controversial in my teachings. There was some Christian contemporary music that some of my church leaders laughed at for not being evangelical enough, for being too mainstream. I mean, never bring in a song from Jars of Clay. And if you know what's eventually happened, who got canceled, they got canceled by evangelical Christianity, because God forbid you actually be accepting of the LGBTQI plus community. So they got canceled. That's a side story, but this is why it's so important, because deconstructing is literally life-changing, and there's something inside you you know that. It's not just going to be your beliefs. It's going to change your life. And it's not just about your beliefs. It's about who you are. It's about how you view the world and your place in it and the people in it. Because there is an arrogant side, a judgmental side, and let's be honest, a bigoted, hateful side to a lot of our Christian upbringing. And it's one thing to say we're going to leave it, and it's another thing to deconstruct from it. So all of that is sitting inside you, starting to awaken that something about who you are and your teachings, the things that have been foundational in how you, the person that you've become, that are wrong. And that is inhibiting you from the person you were really supposed to be. That sits outside the framework of that indoctrination. So, and I heard this a lot. I wrote back in July, I believe. I think it again, I don't remember the titles. Once I write something, it's just gone there. It's something like, Why I Left Christianity, Lynette, is that what it says? It's July. Can you go back that far and see what I wrote? Yes, Auntie Billis, yes, it's a lifelong journey. Yes. Yes, Melissa, Guilt from Hiding Books. Yeah, I had to take the covers off of all of them. But I had several people, when I wrote that about ready to face public facing, that I was leaving Christianity entirely. A lot of people kept saying, oh, I got it. Okay, so you basically are making this decision about politics. And so you never were really a Christian anyway, if you can't get the fact that this has nothing to do with politics. Sister, it has everything to do with politics. It's not necessarily about being political. I'm going to look at my notes here because I want to get this part really right. This isn't about being political, but it's also not about not being political, because Rob Bell wrote about if everything is spiritual, and somehow we're supposed to believe that, except for the places where our Christian indoctrination puts bars around it and says, well, no, not really that. Not really that. When it is, because the number one thing that side of Christianity does is teach you to look over the pain and suffering of the world and hyper-focus on your salvation. Because your salvation is a moving target that they get to decide what the goalposts are for you. And it's highly subjective. And it's highly interpretive. The Bible verses switch up. The Bible verses are cherry-picked. And that's why you have to rely so much on church leadership and being spoon-fed from the pulpit. But the minute you keep turning towards the world and you get a different look, you see human suffering, you see what's happening out there. That's competition. So politics and activism are competition to your indoctrination. But how can you sit in this moment in time and say that it's not political? And say that it doesn't have anything to do with your spirituality? It has everything to do. It has everything to do with your spirituality and everything to do with your humanity. Your spirituality is more about how you show up in the world than where you're going to end up when you die. That's the most massive shift that I had after leaving my faith. And you talk about massive shift when everything is about what do I got to do to get to heaven and make sure I've got stars in my crown when I get there, versus saying, I want to leave a legacy of kindness. I want to leave this world a better place because I was in it. That's where the humility comes from. That's the humble servant. But if I can convince you that salvation is contingent upon your beliefs, and then your behavior around those beliefs, and then I get to mandate what that behavior is, that's a powerful weapon. But when you start to feel that breaking off, it absolutely is life-changing. It absolutely is earth-shattering. It absolutely becomes a lifelong journey because it impacts every part of your life. And then I write about this again in my books, I talk about the paradox because this is so important. It is lonely. It should be lonely. When you've had indoctrination your entire life of people telling you what to believe, how to worship, how to do spirituality, you should spend time in that proverbial wilderness. I call it that. I think there is some merit to this spiritual wilderness. And trust that the process, trust the journey, that the people, your teachers are going to arrive. The falling away that happens leaves room for something more expansive than you will ever know. And everyone's journey through this is going to be different. But if the first thing that you do is not ignore that you can recognize that something inside you is breaking off and something inside you is changing, then you can start to see what no longer serves your highest good and what's ready to be released. I ended this response by saying the signals that were telling me that I was no longer a Christian were just as strong and real as anything else in my life, and I could no longer ignore them. When we know something is off, we know it. And we must not ignore it. Crystal, that is such a good, important. Crystal, I see your comment. You said, yes, thank you, Surefly. Why I left church and then left Christianity. It's back in July. If you want to go find that, you can find that writing. It's pinned over at Substack. Crystal asked, how did people around you react? And also the loneliest feels a little bit like depression, oh, doesn't it? So how did people react? Well, first of all, I want to tell you that, and this is not an uncommon thing, a lot of what I did at the beginning was covert. I shared earlier that I was hiding my books. I wasn't talking a lot about it, and I'm going to be honest with you that even when I went to seminary, because I went to an interfaith, interspiritual seminary, I already knew I did not want to be a Christian minister. I am not a Christian minister. I am an interfaith, interspiritual minister. And for those of you who don't know what that is, interfaith means there's an element, a web of truth that is at the essence of world religions. Now, that doesn't mean that they haven't lost their way. I think many of them were influenced by greed, corruption, drunkenness with power, and patriarchy. So many of them have lost their way, and they've caused great harm over the years. But in their purest intent, I believe that there was something, and that's what interfaith says. There's a respect there that says something about the intent of trying to answer some of these life's existential questions. That always ends up being something about control. Interspirituality says that spirituality can and does exist outside the construct of organized religion. In other words, spirituality is not contingent upon any type of religious affiliation or religious approval. It does not need to be defined or approved by anything. It doesn't mean that people are cherry picking how they show up. It's about understanding that it's much more expansive. And for the best way I describe it is, I believe that where we are in our awakening and our evolution, we still lack the human comprehension and the words to actually define it. So where we are right now, we're just best to stop trying to gatekeep it. But that's where we are in the human experience. Patriarchy still influences so much of what we're doing, so that's what we use as the measure, and so someone gets to try to control it. And that we sometimes feel more comfortable with being led, and I think that's not good for spirituality. Thank you, Luna. It's very kind of you. Ex-pastor's wife, Christian here. Hi, I'm so glad you're here. Thank you for the follow as well. Ripley, sorry, new here. I'm lost. Are you saying people hide from Christianity to hide from real life? No, I'm not saying that. And it might be, you might want to spend some time with my content, or also go read some of my writings over on Substack. That's about as close as I can come to that. It was difficult. Robin says it was so difficult to learn to trust myself during my deconstruction, but life-changing when I did. Yeah, I want to get back to Crystal's comment. The loneliness feels a lot like depression. It really does, because so much of it's like anything else in your life that they talk about, like the things in life that cause the massive moments that can be so traumatic, whether it's losing your job, losing your home, losing a relationship, losing a loved one, those kinds of things. I believe losing your religion should be included in that, because oftentimes your entire identity relies on not just what you believe, but your spiritual community. And for many of us who grew up in that, our belief was contingent. What we believed was contingent upon our spiritual community connections. So once we didn't believe like that anymore, we knew it was going to change our relationships. And for many people, that's too much. You don't know how many people have reached out to me to tell me that they fake it in the pews because the risk of being alone, the fear of being alone, is too much. I had a woman several years ago reach out to me. She was in her 70s, and she wanted to tell me that everything I was teaching her, first of all, she had to do it anonymously, and everything that I was teaching her aligned with where she was. She couldn't stand listening to her pastor talk about all the homophobia, the transphobia, the bigotry, all this stuff drove her crazy. But she relied 100% on her family for financial. She was disabled. For financial, she had no choice but to go along with it, because she said, her own words were, that if they knew what she believed, they would disown her. And do you know how many people have shared stories like that with me? That their relationships are contingent upon them being obedient to a religious system? I certainly have family members I no longer talk to because of how I've changed. Some of that my choice, some of it theirs. And for a long time that was really hard, until you realize that that is probably for your best. That is in your best interest to make those, to sever those ties. But you don't. It's very hard. It's very challenging. It is, honestly, it's not for everyone. That's why some people say, I can't do this. I must be obedient. And I remember that for one hot minute when I left church, for like, man, I don't know if I can do this. I'm just going to go back and I won't make any waves. I won't ask any questions. I won't be told I have a spirit of offense, because I'm just going to be a good Christian. I just don't want to lose all my connections. But I didn't do that. Yes, rescue dog, 100%. Hi, Erica. It's good to see you. Teresa says, that's how I felt as a teenager. No way I could have been honest with my conservative family. No way. Yeah, staying in the closet with some family. Yeah, I didn't let, most people just assumed I was at a Christian seminary. 100%. Thank you, Liz. It's good to be here. I got time for one more question, and so we're going to go to that. Lynette, let's look at, oh, this was a good one. Let's do this. 26.2. Are you there?
I am. Okay, are you ready for the next one?
Yeah, so for those of you who are just joining, we're grabbing questions that we've been harvesting for a while, and we're going to finally get around to them. And we plan to come here a couple times a week. That's our goal. Knock on wood, to answer these questions. So you can leave a question here, or you can also, can they email Lynette if they want to do that, or they can go comment all over on Substack would probably be the best place, right?
Yeah, I mean, all avenues will work. We'll try to capture them the best we can.
Freddie girl, I can't imagine that. Tell your friend that we are sending them so much love for what they're having to do there. All right, so here's the question, Lynette, and then I'll answer it.
Okay. Next one. You recently made a video talking about how patriarchy cannot survive without fantasy. It's the words I've needed and want to understand more.
Okay, so in context, this question was about the picture of Maria Corina Machado presenting her Nobel Peace Prize to Trump. And so you can picture that. I don't know how to show it on the screen. I'm not techno savvy like a lot of the creators are. So you know which picture I'm talking about. And as soon as I saw that picture, those words came to me. Patriarchy cannot survive without fantasy, without this illusion of power, of grandeur. And I decided, like I love to do, I say there's a bridge here that tells Trump's story that will help people understand this fantasy of patriarchy. Now, a lot of people looked at that story and thought it was ridiculous. The people who don't think it's ridiculous are the ones who who are still in this indoctrination, who look at this woman being submissive to a man and honoring him with a medal that they don't ever feel like, number one, a woman should ever get, because in this side of Christianity, it's highly sexist. Now, I've seen it also in progressive churches as well. That's a story for another day. But in this situation, those of us who looked at it and thought it was ridiculous, but you have to understand there's a whole side of Christianity who applauded that, who felt like that was well deserved. So I decided to go down. I remembered a story from the 90s, and I know I can't link it. Hi, Black at you. Hi. I haven't seen you forever, friend. I'm so glad you're here. So honored you're here. Your video, a video of me reading your book just popped up, and I literally just thought of you. That gives me goosebumps when that happens. If you're not following Black at You, if you haven't read Black at You's book, Sleeping with the Ancestors, it's a must read, especially for people who are deconstructing from white Christian patriarchy. A must read. But I had this thought about, in 95, Donald Trump crashed a ribbon cutting ceremony at a charity nursery school. Now, this is true. This is a Washington Post article. And what they say is he arrived uninvited, and a bunch of dignitaries, large donors in the area gave to this nursery school to get it started. He just saunters right on stage, even though he's not a donor. Mayor at the time was Rudy Giuliani. He actually gives him a seat, that he takes a seat from one of the major donors and contractor for this nursery school. And he even participates. There's a picture inside this article. that there's a picture of him participating in the dancing, and he's almost got like a smirk on his face, and nobody can figure out why while he's there. They said he came, he participated, got his picture taken, and the director, the charity's executive director, reported that after the photo ops, he simply drove away without donating any money. So then the director then had to email the developer whose seat Trump had taken and apologize, because she was going to say no to Trump's attendance since he wasn't part of the fundraising. He had no reason to be there. But guess who overrode him being on the stage? Rudy Giuliani. So even though the director has said no, she didn't make any room for him. Giuliani told him to come, and he did. And then he took the space of somebody who had spent a lot of time, a lot of in-kind donations to make this charity successful. Thank you for the hat. So the reason why I'm telling this story when I talk about patriarchy can't exist without fantasy, this is part of what Trump has relied on for years. Since his childhood, he was propped up like this by his parents, to the point now where I truly think that he believes this. He believes these lies that are built his entire life because no one ever challenges him. No one ever challenges him. So he doesn't care about what these prizes represent, or the fact that he's bypassing how things are earned. That means nothing to him. It's about the photo op. He sees himself, he is absolutely obsessed with people who have been awarded those prizes, like Barack Obama, like Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., and he sees himself on their level because he has been allowed to do this since he was a child. So if you look at just like the past 3 weeks, I just thought of something I got to remember, I got to make a video about. Sorry. These past few weeks, a couple of weeks ago, Trump, in one of his tirades, said something about how impressive the soldiers who rappelled down off the helicopter when they attacked Venezuela. And he mused that he thinks he'd like to try that someday. Maybe he could do it. Right, and soon after, RFK Jr. said, this is so crazy, repeating what Dr. Oz said, that Trump has the testosterone of a younger man. Who shares that stuff? Who shares this kind of stuff? Trump constantly claiming that he's in better physical shape than any other president before him. We have watched this man struggle to open doors. We have watched him struggle to hold a glass of water with one hand. He slurs names. He mispronounces words. He shuffles down ramps. You saw some of the pictures at the World Economic Forum. He's slowly fading, and as he does, the delusion surrounding the reality is increasing. So, and you're going to see that in this recent New York Times article that apparently Stephen Miller, I believe, had a lot of influence on the title of, which is The Superhuman President, when he's anything but. He's propped up by medicine, and that's all. I see him being he's got to be infused when he gets off stage, or however they're trying to keep him alive, because it's all a delusion. It's the same kind of delusion that white Christian patriarchy has relied on for years, for generations, especially in this country. This goes back to the white cowboy myth. All of this is connected. So when you start to see it, that's when you can understand that this is not just random. This is incredibly strategic, and we can look at it from those of us who are on the outside and looking at it through the deconstructing filter. We can say, well, this stuff is outrageous, when the people still sitting and influenced by this type of indoctrination look at him and say, this is why God ordains him as the chosen one. It doesn't matter about the horrible things he says. It doesn't matter about all the things he does. He's chosen by God, and God uses people even if they're flawed. But look at him. He's near perfect. So they're setting him up with this warrior-like superhero fantasy facade that's not even close to being real. I don't think that body has ever touched a sit-up. And totally understanding that I'm, as an aging woman, certainly understand that my body doesn't look anything like it did 40 years ago, but guess what, honey? I'm not pretending like it does. Hold on, I gotta verify I'm human. Are you there? I'm missing some conversations out here, I can tell. But and all of this, and then all of this is insulting to the entire aging human process. Because pretending this superhero status for the white man versus then ridiculing, especially aging women, or how he talks about Biden, Sleepy Joe Biden, and things like that. Do you see the pattern? Do you understand how much they have to rely on that kind of narrative to prop up a fake narrative around Trump being a superhero when he's anything but? So very much patriarchy relies on this type of fantasy, and it's incredibly toxic and it's incredibly dangerous. But not only is it dangerous because it's the framework of white Christian patriarchy, but you also have to look at Machado's part in it. Now, some people can say, well, she's so desperate to get into leadership. That's a whole other story because of her affiliation with the authoritarianism. But we're talking about women who carry water willingly for patriarchy no matter what. And that certainly is what Christianity teaches women. Women will defy their own family. They will betray other women. They will snitch on other women. White women who protect and uphold and carry water for patriarchy are some of the most dangerous women inside any system. You start with the church and then you look out at what their influence is, and you don't have to look any further than to see the ones who are willing to do the most dangerous work, as in Caroline Levitt, Kristi Noem, and Erica Kirk, to see at the depths of their betrayal to any system or any kind of weaponization that they're willing to put around a belief system that protects their privilege inside that system. You know, people will talk about, when I say that, our government structure, churches are incredibly misogynistic. Well, what do you mean? Erica's out there doing tours. I mean, she's propped up as a leader. No, she's not. She's a tool for patriarchy. She's just a tool for Christian patriarchy. Caroline Levitt, I don't know how her neck isn't sore every day wearing some of the gold necklaces, cross necklaces that she wears. She's nothing but a tool for patriarchy. Nothing comes out of her mouth that isn't 100% approved by some man in the background. Kristi Noem isn't saying anything. The whole fact that we're trying to get her impeached, yeah, she's a tool and she's a figurehead, but she's not the problem. There's somebody else behind her who's the real danger. That's where the power really lies. Kristi Noem has never had an original thought in her life. She's just a useful tool because she's willing to be a parrot for a patriarchal system that rewards her and pats her on the head as long as she's obedient. And so when you look at these system, it's very important to understand how the cabinet, Congress is all performing and contributing to this narrative about patriarchy, relying on fantasy. And that's exactly what Machado was doing that day. She was showing how she was also going to be obedient. And that is the danger and the toxicity and the power of patriarchy. But it's also, when you understand and see it, and you can start to deconstruct, and you're deconstructing from it, then you can't be controlled by it. You can see through it, and then you see how it impacts your life, not only the way you see those structures, but then how you show up in your own world. Don't be silenced by, thank you so much for the gifts. I see all that. Yeah, Stephen Miller, Jam, 100%. He's the one. Joanne says, I agree. I believe Trump is a tool, too, for the Heritage Foundation. I think it goes bigger than that. Luna, I'm here to be a disobedient woman. I love that. I think that needs to be a shirt. Joanne, 100%. And this is where we got to stop. We got to stop thinking that all of this ends at Trump's, whether he leaves or he exits some other way or he has some kind of physical disabling of him. He's a segue. He's a segue. What's behind them, J.D. Vance, the Heritage Foundation, and a couple other things that I know I can't mention here. There's so much more. So much more. Okay, y'all. This has been, I hope you've enjoyed this. We're going to try, Lynette, we've got one more question, but I'm going to save that for Thursday, and I'll put some more thought into this because I have mentioned a couple times, I'm getting ready to do a video. I've seen some calls for a more massive movement, and I believe that's the voice that's the call that many of us with any kind of platform left needs to talk about. And so I want to give you some actionable steps behind it. And I've mentioned it a couple times, some of the prepping I've done in my home, but it goes beyond that. And I think it's time for us to have a more candid, direct, thoughtful conversation to give people actionable steps. And I want to give that a little bit more. Lynette, do you have anything else you want to say? Mary Beth, hi, sister. Hi. That's my sister. I did not see you here. Yes, Big Mama, 100%, 100%. All good with me. Okay, y'all. This has been a wonderful conversation. I hope you have enjoyed it. For those of you who have been here the entire time, these videos will appear in their entirety over on YT. So if you want to revisit anything that I said there, that's where they'll be. Don't forget, you can follow me over on Substack to get my writings. I read a little bit about what I wrote on Sunday called I Lost Heaven, and I'm grateful for it. I write there every Sunday. We're going to be doing some more things related to book study around my book, Deconstructing. Not sure what time we're going to go live on Thursday. Make sure you set your notifications. If you haven't, please engage with my videos. Those of us on this side of TikTok, I'm not sure if it's directed or not, but it certainly is looking that way. Please like, share, comment on the videos. We certainly appreciate you. And I so appreciate all of you here today, the likes, the follows, the gifts. You all are amazing. I'm so appreciative of you being here. This is the way any educational system, anything that's educational, inspirational, anytime we come together as a community, this counts. This is an act of resistance. This is an act of affirmation, and that's how we remind one another we're not alone in this. We are the majority. The power lies with the people. Don't ever forget that. Rob Bell says everything is spiritual. I believe that. So this is our time to be activated, to be political, because if we believe in this country and every human's right to exist with dignity and with true equity, then this is our time. A time such as this. We are all here and we are equipped and we can do that. Space Ranger says it is time to flip the tables. I agree with you. Hi, Jenny. It's so good to be here. Thank you all so very much, and I will see you sometime on Thursday. Bye for now.